We're here with Clay Bryant. He is running for Troup County Coroner. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a lifelong resident of Troup County. I've been pretty much involved in law enforcement in the county all my life, and emergency medicine as well. I've started with the State Patrol back in 1973 as a radio operator, and I became a trooper in '76 as soon as I became 21. And I spent 8.5 years with the State Patrol. And then after my father passed away in 1980, I was offered the job as chief of police in Hogansville, where he had been, and I took that job and I stayed there for 12 years. And after that, I was a paramedic supervisor with Troup County EMS. I was in emergency medicine because we also operated the ambulance service out of the Hogansville Police Department for about a total of 10 years. And I served as a paramedic, and I was a paramedic instructor. And during the time that I was with the State Patrol, I got my undergraduate, and I got a law degree from Woodrow Wilson School, College of Law in Atlanta. So I've been around the block.
You've done a little bit of everything.
Yes, ma'am.
So it sounds like a lot of your background is in law enforcement and forensics.
It is. It is.
So tell us a little bit about your forensic pathology, which goes along with being a coroner. So what your specific experience is in that?
I have had, I can't even estimate the number of cases of investigation and death investigation. I say cases in classes and instruction in that. I've been fortunate enough to have been involved, if you could call it fortunate enough, to have been involved, I guess, for the experience for this job. I was involved in several death investigations. As I was the chief of police in Hogansville, a number of death investigations involved anything from homicide, suicide, natural cause death, accidents, everything that probably could result in a person passing away. I've had at least some experience in dealing with it, and it's some of it's been rather hard, you know, dealing with families and whatnot at a time when the worst thing in the world that could have happened happened. And, you know, that's kind of hard, but, I believe that if a person, the main thing I think the coroner needs to do is to make sure that whatever happened it appears that it is what it appears to be. The coroner's job in Georgia only requires a person to be a resident of the county and have a high school diploma. With my experiences over the last 40 years, I think that I'm very, very well qualified to hold this position. A lot of people get the coroner and the medical examiner confused.
That's actually one of the questions I was going to ask you is what is the difference between a medical coroner or a coroner and a medical examiner?
The coroner, his job is to determine the manner of death, whether and there's only just a few selections: homicide, suicide, natural cause, or accident. And the medical examiner is a medical doctor, and he performs autopsies and answers all the medical questions as to the exact cause of the cessation of life. And the coroner works with them and with law enforcement to ensure that you come to the proper conclusion as to what happened and why this person has died. And because of that, the coroner's position is also depends a lot on forensics, the mechanics of what happened to cause the death. The medical examiner tells you what happened, why the person died. But the coroner should be able to investigate the circumstance and situation around the death and make a determination as to what the manner of death was. A lot of people think that the manner of death, that like a homicide, they think, well, all homicides are murders. No, they're not. Homicide is any death that occurs due to the intentional act or reckless, careless act of someone else, and not all of them are murders.
Now, you said that that it's investigating to determine the cause and in which you're going to classify the death as. So, what are some examples that you've had in investigating? Do you investigate deaths frequently, or have you?
I have in the past, but not recently. I retired from my investigation, my state job, over a year and a half ago. But, and in the latter part of my career, I was looking mostly at cases that law enforcement had already brought, and to see if, in fact, I did agree with what their conclusions were. The coroner's office and law enforcement both conduct investigations, and they are independent of each other. However, there needs to be communication, and because if I as coroner see something that I believe is in conflict with what law enforcement says, then the coroner's office and the law enforcement need to sit down and have a discussion as to why and clear that issue up, because that's what we should do. We should try to come up with the true and exact manner of the death.
And do you think you would have a good working relationship with all of the different departments between the medical examiner and the law enforcement with the coroner's office?
I'm well known in the community. I've been here all my life. Have worked with a huge number of the folks that are in law enforcement now in just about every jurisdiction, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for them, and I think most of them have the same for me. And I don't think there's anything that we couldn't work together in to come up with the right answers. That's what I'd strive to do as a coroner.
What about the situation whenever you are having to interact with grieving families? Like, how do you handle that?
I've had to deal with that on a number of occasions. And as a coroner, it's very, very, it's all the time. Again, you're dealing with a family that has just started to experience the worst thing in the world that could happen for them. And you have to be kind and compassionate and straightforward and truthful, and do everything you can to make the trial that they're going through as painless as it can be for them, if there is any such thing. But it's you got to feel in your heart. You've got to be able to do all you can to relieve any suffering that they're doing. I've always tried to do that.
What is the relationship with law enforcement on a death scene?
Well, the coroner has specific duties that they carry out. So does law enforcement. And if you look at it from one standpoint, you can say sometimes they're a little bit in conflict with each other, but they don't need to be. Law enforcement has to preserve, especially if it's a situation where there is foul play, suspected or possible, because sometimes foul play is found later on in the investigation as opposed to earlier. They have to be able to collect their evidence, do the things that they need to do sometime before the body's disturbed. And because if anybody does anything to alter the body or the evidence, it becomes tainted and it's very likely not gonna make it into a courtroom. But the coroner is in charge of the body, and should be present. He should see everything that's done, and as quick as they get through doing the investigative steps, then it's the coroner's job to take control of the body, get with the family, see what it is they want to do, what their wishes are with the body, and that's the way it should be handled.
I'm going to ask you, kind of change subjects a little bit and talk about fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the coroner's office should take a proactive approach in making sure the community is aware of the risk associated with fentanyl?
Absolutely. I mean, we've already experienced several fentanyl deaths, several deaths associated with fentanyl here. And no telling how many that we didn't know about. But, you know, toxicology tells that story. But a lot of people don't realize, and especially people that are in a situation where they might be addicted, and the main thing they want to do is get high. They have no idea that high might be their last high. And we need to do everything we can to eradicate the fentanyl crisis that is not just in our country, but in our community. Right. What they've done is folks that import cocaine and methamphetamine, they lace it with fentanyl because it's highly addictive and it makes a tremendous high. And they might as well be taking a gun to somebody. But yes, I think that the coroner's office should, every time that there's a death that involves fentanyl, it needs to be not in a situation where it would embarrass a family, but it needs to be publicized just how devastating it is to our community.
Yeah, and I don't think I've seen any public, anything being talked about very publicly. And I think it's because they want to protect the family, but.
It is. And you can do that in ways where you don't publicly want to embarrass or divulge information that's
right.
under the HIPAA Act.
Right.
But by the same token, it doesn't hurt when you start talking about the numbers of deaths and those types of things. That should surely be done.
Okay. I'm going to give you a minute to tell the public why they should vote for you for coroner.
Well, I believe that with my experience, that I have a history of seeking the right answers and asking the questions that need to be asked in order to find those answers. And I can assure everybody in this county that in the event they lose a loved one or a friend, that I will do everything in my power to ensure that that death is what it appeared to be. And that's Road to Coma.
Very good. Well, Clay, thank you so much for being with us today. I've really appreciated it. And we look forward to hearing more from you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.